"Just say you're my wife," the cold millionaire begged. But her answer unlocked his darkest secret. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that seeps through your bones and makes the city lights shimmer like frost. The wind howled down the nearly empty bridge, carrying with it the smell of rain and gasoline. Maya Tran tightened her worn jacket and squinted through the downpour. Her shift at the hospital had just ended, and all she wanted was to get home before the next storm wave hit. But then she saw a pair of headlights swerving dangerously near the guardrail, a screech of tires, and the sickening sound of metal crashing against steel. Without thinking, she dropped her bag and sprinted forward. Her sneakers splashed through puddles as she reached the smoking car, its front end crushed against the railing. Steam hissed from the hood. Inside, a man was slumped over the steering wheel, motionless. "Sir, can you hear me?" she shouted, tugging at the locked door. The smell of burning oil filled her lungs. She wrapped her jacket sleeve around her hand, smashed the side window with a rock, and reached inside to unlock it. Glass bit into her wrist, but she did not care. She pulled the door open and leaned in. The man's face was pale under the dashboard light-strong features. A small cut on his temple, blood trickling down. His breath came out shallow and broken. Maya pressed 2 fingers to his neck. Pulse weak, but there. "Hang in there, you are okay," she whispered, slipping off her jacket and placing it over his chest to stop the trembling. His eyes flickered open for a brief second, gray and unfocused. "Do not call anyone," he murmured, voice rough as gravel. "Please." Then he went limp again. Maya froze. Who begs not to be helped? Her heart pounded as she checked his vitals again. His phone was shattered on the passenger seat, a leather wallet tossed beside it. She did not look at the name, just focused on keeping him breathing. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, but she was not waiting. With every ounce of strength, Maya dragged him out of the car, her back screaming from the effort, and laid him down on the wet asphalt. Rain poured over both of them, turning her hair into dark ropes sticking to her face. "You are safe now," she whispered, pressing his wound with her jacket. His skin was cold, his lips blue, but the faint beat under her fingers told her he was fighting. She brushed a lock of hair off his forehead and looked up just as the paramedics' headlights cut through the rain. They rushed toward her, shouting orders, but all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. As they loaded the man onto the stretcher, one of the medics turned to her. "You just saved his life, ma'am." Maya exhaled, half in disbelief. She watched the ambulance pull away into the night, the red lights fading against the storm, unaware that the man she had just pulled from the wreck was Adrian Black, the missing billionaire whose face had been on every news station for the past 3 days. And this was only the beginning. By the time the ambulance disappeared into the night, Maya stood drenched on the bridge, her heartbeat still racing. The cold rain washed the blood from her hands, leaving only a faint red trail that ran down the pavement. Her shift at the hospital had already ended hours ago, but when the paramedics asked her to ride along, she agreed without hesitation. Inside the ambulance, the man she had saved lay unconscious beneath the oxygen mask. His chest rose and fell with every mechanical breath, fragile yet persistent. She watched the monitor beep steadily, her hands trembling with adrenaline and relief. When they reached Westbridge Medical Center, Maya followed the stretcher down the corridor, shouting vitals as if she were still on duty. Male, early 30s, severe head trauma, probable internal bleeding, one of the paramedics reported. Pulse stable but weak. Maya stood in the doorway as the trauma team surrounded him. Bright lights flooded the room, voices overlapped, gloves snapped, machines whirred. Then the glass doors slid shut in her face, leaving her outside with nothing but the echo of her own breath. For a moment, she just stood there, soaked and silent, her mind struggling to catch up with what had happened. A nurse tapped her shoulder. "Miss, are you all right?" Maya nodded weakly. "I am fine. Just needed to make sure he made it." She handed over the man's wallet, phone, and the small wooden bracelet she had found on the floor of the car. The nurse thanked her, and Maya turned to leave. But before she could take a step, a doctor called after her. "You are the one who brought him in, right? If you had not acted that fast, he would not have survived the night." The words hit her harder than the rain. She mumbled a quiet thank you and walked out into the hallway, her shoes squeaking against the linoleum. By the time she reached the staff exit, the storm had quieted. The city lay still, the streets glistening under the orange glow of the lamps. When she got home, her tiny apartment felt smaller than ever. She hung her soaked jacket on the door and stared at the faint tear near the cuff. A tiny shard of glass was still embedded there. She pulled it out carefully, wrapped it in tissue, and dropped it into the trash. Her body ached, but her mind refused to rest. The man's face haunted her the way he had whispered not to call anyone, the desperation in his eyes. Who was he? Why was he driving alone on that bridge in the middle of a storm? The next morning, the world had its answer. As Maya walked through the hospital lobby for her next shift, the giant television above the reception desk flashed breaking news. Billionaire CEO Adrian Black found critically injured after car accident. Maya stopped cold. The photo on the screen, the gray eyes, the strong jawline, the same cut on the temple, it was him. The same man she had pulled from the wreck. Her hands went numb as the anchor continued. Sources say Adrian Black, head of Black Tech Industries, had been missing for 3 days. Authorities suspect foul play. Around her, nurses whispered. Patients turned to look, but all Maya could hear was the echo of his voice from last night. Do not call anyone. Later that day, when she passed by the intensive care ward, her steps slowed. Through the glass, she saw him lying still, connected to tubes and machines. The world knew him as a billionaire, a power figure. But to her, he was the stranger she had held on that bridge, the man who had begged for silence instead of help. She hesitated before moving closer, her reflection merging with his through the glass. She whispered, "You are safe now, Mr. Black." No one heard her, but she knew he would. What she did not know was that this single act of kindness would soon pull her into a storm far darker than the one she had braved that night. For the next 2 nights, Maya could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flash of headlights, and the moment his hand slipped from hers. She kept thinking about the news, how a man with everything could end up alone, almost dead on a bridge. At the hospital, her work carried on as usual, but her mind was elsewhere. On the 3rd morning, she was called to cover a shift in the private wing. When she checked the list of patients, her heart skipped. Room 814, Adrian Black, the billionaire. The man she had saved. Maya hesitated outside the door, her palms damp. The chart said coma, observation only. She stepped in quietly. The room was larger than any patient room she had ever seen. Soft lighting, expensive equipment, fresh flowers on the nightstand. Adrian lay still, pale against the white sheets, his face calm but distant, like marble. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor was the only sound. She took a slow breath and approached. "Good morning, Mr. Black," she whispered, unsure why she said it. "It is me, the one who pulled you out that night." Of course, there was no response. She adjusted the IV line and brushed the wrinkles from the blanket. Her fingers paused on his wrist, feeling the faint pulse beneath the skin. "You are still fighting. That is good." She looked around the room and noticed a folded paper on the tray table. It was her note, the one she had left on the gurney that night. The words, "You are safe now," written in her hurried handwriting. Someone had saved it. Maya smiled faintly and tucked it back in place. Later that afternoon, while checking his vitals again, she found something else on the bedside table, a small wooden bracelet, polished but cracked. The same one she had handed to the nurse. She picked it up, running her thumb over the initials AB, carved on the back. "This must mean something to you," she said softly. "Do not worry, I will keep it safe." She slipped it into a small pouch and set it beside the monitor. Days passed in the same quiet rhythm. Maya came in every morning and every night, even when she was not assigned. She talked to him while changing his IV fluids, told him about the noisy cafeteria, about a patient who brought her cookies, about her mother's health improving slightly. "It helps to talk," she said once, almost to herself. "Maybe you can hear me, maybe not. But silence is worse." One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the room in gold, Maya hummed a tune she used to sing to calm herself. Halfway through, she froze. A faint twitch ran through Adrian's fingers. She leaned closer, holding her breath. Nothing. The monitor beeped steady as ever. "I must be imagining things," she murmured, shaking her head. But when she touched his hand again, she felt it the slightest movement, like a muscle remembering life. Her heart leapt. "Dr. Harris," she whispered into the intercom. "I think he moved." Within minutes, the medical team rushed in. They ran tests, scanned his brain, and studied the readings. "There is increased neural activity," Dr. Harris confirmed, astonished. It might be random, but it is a very good sign. When everyone left, Maya stayed behind, staring at him. "You heard me, did you not?" she said, voice trembling with hope. The next morning, she came in early with a cup of ginger tea. It had become her routine, though he could not drink it. She set it near his bed, the smell of warmth filling the air. "I do not know why I keep showing up here," she said softly. "Maybe because I cannot stand seeing someone alone." She reached out and adjusted his blanket, then started humming again. That was when it happened, the faintest squeeze on her fingers. She gasped, eyes wide. "Mr. Black? Adrian? Can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered once, twice, then opened slowly. The gray eyes she remembered met hers for the first time. Confusion clouded them, then fear. "You are safe," she whispered quickly, leaning closer. "You are in the hospital. You had an accident, but you are going to be fine." His lips moved soundlessly, then formed one word. "Maya." She froze. He remembered her name. Somehow, through pain and darkness, he remembered. And in that moment, the billionaire and the nurse, two strangers bound by a single act of kindness, began a connection that neither of them could explain, but both would soon need to survive what was coming next. The next few days at Westbridge Medical Center felt unreal. News of Adrian Black's awakening spread like wildfire, but the hospital kept the information sealed off from the public. Only a few doctors and nurses were allowed in his private ward, and Maya was one of them. Every time she entered the room, she found him watching the window, lost in thought. The once powerful man now looked fragile, the weight of the world stripped away from his shoulders. When she greeted him, he always gave the same quiet response. "Good morning, Nurse Maya." It was formal, yet there was something in his tone that felt personal, almost protective. One afternoon, Dr. Harris stopped her outside the ward. "He is improving faster than expected," he said, lowering his voice. "He asks for you more than anyone else." Maya blinked in surprise. "Me? Why?" The doctor smiled faintly. "You were the first face he saw when he woke up. You are his anchor now." When she entered, Adrian was sitting up, staring at the small wooden bracelet she had placed on the bedside table. "You kept it," he said softly. Maya nodded. "It was with you when I found you. I thought it mattered." He turned the bracelet in his hand. "It belonged to my father," he said quietly. "He used to tell me that strength means protecting people, not controlling them." His gaze shifted to her. "You protected me, Maya, even when I asked you not to." The air between them thickened with something unspoken. She cleared her throat and changed the subject. "You should rest. Dr. Harris says you are doing well." But Adrian's expression darkened. "I remember the crash," he whispered. "Not all of it, but parts. The brakes failed, but that was no accident." Maya froze. "What do you mean?" "Someone tampered with my car," he said. "And I think I know who." He looked away, his jaw tightening. "My chief financial officer, Kellen Price. I was going to expose a cover-up involving company funds money meant for factory safety repairs. I confronted him the night I disappeared." Maya stared at him, horrified. "You think he tried to kill you?" Adrian nodded slowly. He wanted silence. "Now he probably believes I am dead." She shook her head. "You should tell the police." He sighed. "If I do, thousands of employees could lose their jobs. Stockholders would panic. Kellen knows that. He counts on my silence." Maya's chest tightened. She looked at the machines keeping him alive, the bruises fading on his face. "Silence almost killed you once," she said quietly. "Do not let it finish the job." Adrian studied her for a long moment. "You sound like my father," he said finally. "He would have liked you." From that day forward, Maya became more than just his nurse. She helped him walk again, first with assistance, then with slow, careful steps down the hallway. They spent hours talking about the world outside, about the patients she cared for, about the man he used to be before money changed everything. Sometimes, she caught him smiling when he thought she was not looking, but the fragile peace did not last. One morning, as she walked into his room with the usual tray of medication, she noticed a man in a gray suit leaving quickly. Adrian's expression was pale, his hands trembling. "Who was that?" she asked. He hesitated. "Someone from the board. He brought me a message." "What kind of message?" Maya pressed. Adrian's voice was tight. "That if I speak about the accident, they will ruin you." Maya's breath caught. "Me? Why would they—" "Because you were there that night," he interrupted. "They will twist it, say you were part of some scheme, that you did this for money. Kellen controls the media. He will destroy anyone near me." Maya felt the floor drop beneath her feet. "Then what will you do?" Adrian looked up, his gray eyes burning with quiet resolve. "What I should have done a long time ago, tell the truth." He took her hand gently. "But I cannot do it alone. In that moment, Maya understood the danger they both faced. Yet she also saw the spark of courage in his eyes, the same fire she had seen on that bridge. And even though fear clawed at her, she nodded. Then we face it together. Outside the window, the storm clouds gathered again over the city skyline, as if reminding them that some battles were worth fighting, no matter how dark the sky became. The next week moved like a storm no one could stop. Adrian's recovery was steady, but his world outside the hospital grew more dangerous by the hour. News outlets were already speculating about his condition, and whispers from the boardroom reached even the nurses' lounge. Maya tried to stay focused on her work, but she could feel the tension creeping into every hallway. Every time she entered Adrian's room, he looked a little stronger and a little more determined. One evening he was sitting by the window, dressed in plain hospital clothes, his face calm but his eyes sharp. "I have been thinking," he said quietly when she came in. "If I cannot bring Kellen down through the board, I will do it with evidence." Maya frowned. "What kind of evidence?" Adrian reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out a small black flash drive. "Before the crash, I copied files from our internal system. Safety reports, transaction records, payments to ghost accounts. Enough to expose everything." Maya stared at it, her heartbeat quickening. "That is proof. You need to give it to the police." Adrian shook his head. "Not yet. If I hand it over now, Kellen will know I am alive. He will come after me. I need time to make this public safely." He glanced at her. "And I need someone I can trust to help me." Maya hesitated. "Me? You are the only one who has nothing to gain and everything to lose," he said softly. "That is what makes you the only one I can trust." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. What do we do first?" The plan was simple: retrieve additional documents from the company's downtown office. Adrian could not go, but his clearance badge was still active. Maya volunteered to go instead, posing as a courier for medical paperwork. The next evening, as the city lights flickered under light rain, she found herself in the grand marble lobby of Black Tech Industries. The receptionist barely looked up when she flashed the ID badge. Her heart raced as she stepped into the elevator, the numbers climbing to the 32nd floor. Inside Adrian's office, the air smelled faintly of leather and dust. Everything was untouched, just as he had left it. She plugged the flash drive into his computer and watched the screen come alive. Folders opened: contracts, emails, expense logs. One document caught her attention: Emergency Safety Report, Plant C. The file revealed the truth. Kellen had signed off on maintenance checks that were never done, pocketing millions from budget cuts. One of the workers had died in an explosion 3 months ago. Maya's stomach turned. She copied everything quickly and slipped the drive into her pocket. Just as she turned to leave, the elevator dinged. Voices echoed down the hall. "She should be here," a man said. Maya froze. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She ducked behind the desk as the office door opened. Through the narrow gap, she saw 2 men in security uniforms, but their badges were wrong. Fake. One of them picked up the phone from Adrian's desk. "Nothing here yet," Kellen said to search the files. Kellen's name sent ice through her veins. She waited until they moved deeper into the office, then crawled silently toward the door. Timing her breath with their steps, she slipped out and ran down the emergency stairs. Her shoes slapped against the concrete, her lungs burning. Outside, rain poured down again, as if the city itself wanted to hide her escape. By the time she reached the hospital, her clothes were soaked, her hair plastered to her face. Adrian was waiting in the hallway, leaning on his cane. When he saw her, his relief was visible. "Did you get it?" She nodded, handing him the drive. "Everything. But they were there, Adrian. They knew someone was coming." He clenched his jaw. "Then Kellen is desperate." She met his eyes, trembling. "He will not stop." Adrian reached for her hand. "Neither will we." For a moment they stood in silence, the sound of rain against the window matching the rhythm of their hearts. Then, somewhere down the corridor, a shadow moved, a figure in a gray suit, watching them before disappearing into the darkness. Maya turned sharply, but the hall was empty. The threat was no longer distant. It was already here. The following days were filled with tension. Maya felt it in every step she took down the bright hospital corridors. The threat no longer lingered in shadows. It was breathing down their necks. Adrian had moved to a recovery suite under a different name for protection. But even there, he never seemed fully safe. His body was healing, yet his mind was constantly alert, listening for footsteps that did not belong. Maya stayed by his side whenever she could, checking his vitals, bringing him tea, sometimes just sitting in silence. The world outside the hospital buzzed with rumors. Media outlets speculated about his absence from the public eye, investors panicked, and the company's stock fluctuated wildly. "He will strike soon," Adrian said one evening, staring at the rain streaking the window. "Kellen will try to silence me before the files go public." Maya's heart tightened. "Then we need to stay ahead of him." "There is one last document that completes everything," Adrian said. "The official audit file, signed by Kellen himself. It is stored in the off-site records center. Without it, the authorities will need months to verify the rest." "Then we get it," Maya said without hesitation. Adrian looked at her, his eyes softening. "You have already risked too much." "You risked your life for the truth," she replied firmly. "Let me do my part." The plan was set. The next night, Maya drove to the records facility on the outskirts of the city. The air was cold and heavy with fog. Inside, rows of metal cabinets stretched endlessly under dim fluorescent lights. She found the archive marked Corporate Financial 2023 and pulled out the folder. But as her hand closed around it, the lights flickered, then a voice echoed from behind her. "You should not have come here." Maya froze. Kellen Price stepped out of the shadows, his suit immaculate, his smile razor-sharp. "I was hoping we would not have to meet," he said. "But you made it impossible to avoid." She clutched the folder to her chest. "You tried to kill him. He was going to destroy everything we built," Kellen replied calmly. "Do you think I will let some nurse undo years of work?" He took a step closer. "Hand it over." Maya shook her head. "This belongs to the people who got hurt, to the worker who died because you cut corners." His expression hardened. "You do not understand the world you are in. Adrian was never meant to survive. You should have stayed silent." He lunged forward, but before he could grab her, a voice cut through the air. "Step away from her, Kellen." Adrian stood in the doorway, leaning on his cane, his voice steady but cold. "I am not dead yet." Kellen turned, eyes narrowing. "You should have stayed in your hospital bed." Adrian's grip tightened on the cane. "You should have stayed human." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Kellen reached inside his jacket. But before he could pull anything out, security lights flashed red. Police sirens wailed outside. "It is over," Adrian said. "I sent the files to the district attorney an hour ago. They are waiting for you." Kellen's composure cracked. He turned toward the exit, but officers stormed in, shouting orders. Within seconds, he was on the ground, cuffed and furious. "You will regret this," he hissed. "You think truth saves you? It destroys you." Adrian exhaled slowly, his shoulders trembling. "Maybe," he said, "but it sets everyone else free." When it was finally over, Maya stood beside him, clutching the folder. "You came for me?" she said quietly. Adrian met her gaze. "You came for me first." Outside, the fog began to lift. Police lights reflected against the wet pavement, painting the night in flashes of blue and red. For the first time in months, Adrian Black could breathe without fear. And beside him, Maya felt something she had not felt in years, a calm that came not from safety, but from doing what was right. As they walked out of the records center, the city skyline shimmered ahead, and for the first time since the bridge, the future did not feel dark anymore. It felt wide open. The following days were filled with tension. Maya felt it in every step she took down the bright hospital corridors. The threat no longer lingered in shadows. It was breathing down their necks. Adrian had moved to a recovery suite under a different name for protection. But even there, he never seemed fully safe. His body was healing, yet his mind was constantly alert, listening for footsteps that did not belong. Maya stayed by his side whenever she could, checking his vitals, bringing him tea, sometimes just sitting in silence. The world outside the hospital buzzed with rumors. Media outlets speculated about his absence from the public eye. Investors panicked, and the company's stock fluctuated wildly. "He will strike soon," Adrian said one evening, staring at the rain streaking the window. "Kellen will try to silence me before the files go public." Maya's heart tightened. "Then we need to stay ahead of him." "There is one last document that completes everything," Adrian said. "The official audit file signed by Kellen himself. It is stored in the off-site records center. Without it, the authorities will need months to verify the rest." "Then we get it," Maya said without hesitation. Adrian looked at her, his eyes softening. "You have already risked too much." "You risked your life for the truth," she replied firmly. "Let me do my part." The plan was set. The next night, Maya drove to the records facility on the outskirts of the city. The air was cold and heavy with fog. Inside, rows of metal cabinets stretched endlessly under dim fluorescent lights. She found the archive marked Corporate Financial 2023 and pulled out the folder. But as her hand closed around it, the lights flickered. Then a voice echoed from behind her. "You should not have come here." Maya froze. Kellen Price stepped out of the shadows, his suit immaculate, his smile razor-sharp. "I was hoping we would not have to meet," he said. "But you made it impossible to avoid." She clutched the folder to her chest. "You tried to kill him." "He was going to destroy everything we built," Kellen replied calmly. "Do you think I will let some nurse undo years of work?" He took a step closer. "Hand it over." Maya shook her head. "This belongs to the people who got hurt, to the worker who died because you cut corners." His expression hardened. "You do not understand the world you are in. Adrian was never meant to survive. You should have stayed silent." He lunged forward, but before he could grab her, a voice cut through the air. "Step away from her, Kellen." Adrian stood in the doorway, leaning on his cane, his voice steady but cold. "I am not dead yet." Kellen turned, eyes narrowing. "You should have stayed in your hospital bed." Adrian's grip tightened on the cane. "You should have stayed human." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then Kellen reached inside his jacket. But before he could pull anything out, security lights flashed red. Police sirens wailed outside. "It is over," Adrian said. "I sent the files to the district attorney an hour ago. They are waiting for you." Kellen's composure cracked. He turned toward the exit, but officers stormed in, shouting orders. Within seconds, he was on the ground, cuffed and furious. "You will regret this," he hissed. "You think truth saves you. It destroys you." Adrian exhaled slowly, his shoulders trembling. "Maybe," he said, "but it sets everyone else free." When it was finally over, Maya stood beside him, clutching the folder. "You came for me," she said quietly. Adrian met her gaze. "You came for me first." Outside, the fog began to lift. Police lights reflected against the wet pavement, painting the night in flashes of blue and red. For the first time in months, Adrian Black could breathe without fear. And beside him, Maya felt something she had not felt in years, a calm that came not from safety, but from doing what was right. As they walked out of the record's center, the city skyline shimmered ahead, and for the first time since the bridge, the future did not feel dark anymore. It felt wide open. The weeks that followed were a blur of headlines and courtroom lights. The scandal surrounding Black Tech exploded across every news network in the country. Investigators uncovered years of falsified reports, stolen funds, and safety violations that had cost innocent lives. Kellen Price faced a long list of charges: fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. His empire of deceit collapsed overnight. Through it all, Adrian Black stood before the cameras, no longer the untouchable billionaire who hid behind numbers and boardroom walls. He appeared in a simple dark suit, his voice steady as he addressed the public. "I allowed greed and fear to blind me," he said, the microphones capturing every word. "But one person reminded me that truth is worth more than power. She risked everything to save me when I did not deserve saving." Behind the cameras, Maya watched, her eyes filled with quiet pride. The press called her the nurse who saved the billionaire, but she did not care about titles. She cared that the truth was finally out, that justice had a name and a face. After the hearing, Adrian found her waiting outside the courthouse, the crowd parting as if instinctively making room for them. "You kept your promise," she said softly. "You told the truth." He nodded. "You taught me how." For the first time in years, his smile was unguarded. "I have spent my whole life trying to be strong, but I never understood that real strength is admitting when you were wrong." She looked up at him, the autumn light reflecting in her eyes. "And now?" "Now I build something honest," he said. "A foundation for the workers, scholarships for their families. It will be called Safe Shift, your idea, your name." Maya blinked, surprised. "Mine?" "It belongs to you," he said. "Because you believed in people when I had forgotten how." A gentle breeze lifted her hair as they walked down the courthouse steps together. Reporters shouted questions, flashes burst, but Adrian did not look away from her. "The world will always remember you as the man who exposed corruption," she said, half teasing. "Then let them," he replied. "As long as you remember me as the man you refused to give up on." She laughed softly, and for a moment, it felt as though the chaos of the world had melted away. Later that evening, they stood on the hospital rooftop where it had all begun. The city stretched below them, glittering under the night sky. Adrian handed her a small box. Inside was the wooden bracelet, repaired and polished, its initials still carved into the grain. "This reminded me where I came from," he said. "Now I want it to remind me who helped me find my way back." Maya looked at him, emotion tightening her throat. "I do not need anything," she whispered. You already gave me something worth more than this. What is that? He asked. A reason to believe that people can change, she said. And as the wind swept across the rooftop, Adrian took her hand, not out of weakness, not out of gratitude, but with the quiet certainty of a man who had finally found peace. The city below pulsed with life, but for the two of them, the world felt still, balanced, and new. 1 year later, the world looked different. The headlines no longer spoke of scandal or greed. They spoke of change. The SafeShift Foundation had become a symbol of hope across the country, funding safety programs, hospitals, and scholarships for families who had once worked in silence. Maya stood in the courtyard of the new Westbridge Community Center, watching as children planted small olive trees along the walkway. It was a quiet ceremony, simple but full of meaning. The olive tree had become the emblem of the foundation, a promise that something good could always grow from tragedy. As the crowd gathered, a familiar voice spoke behind her. They look just like the ones you planted in the hospital garden, Adrian said, his tone warm, no longer carrying the sharp edge it once did. She turned, smiling. He looked different too, healthier, calmer, with a peace that came from honesty rather than power. Back then, I did not know if they would survive, she said, glancing at the small trees swaying gently in the wind. Now look at them. They are stronger than I expected. Just like you, he said quietly. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded. He reached into his pocket and took out a small velvet box. Maya blinked in surprise. Adrian, what are you doing? He smiled slightly, finishing what life started that night on the bridge. He opened the box to reveal a simple silver ring. No diamonds, no grand gesture, just sincerity. You once told me that real strength is choosing kindness even when the world does not deserve it. You were right, and I do not want to spend another day without the person who reminded me of that. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at the ring. Around them, the crowd grew silent, realizing what was happening. Are you sure? She whispered. After everything? Especially after everything, he said. I have seen what love built on truth can do. It heals, it rebuilds, it forgives. So Maya Tran, will you marry me? For a long second she could not speak. Then she laughed through her tears and nodded. Yes, but only if we keep planting those trees. The crowd erupted in applause as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Cameras flashed, but neither of them noticed. Adrian pulled her close and whispered, This time I am not hiding behind a company or a lie. This is me, just a man who finally learned how to live. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and cast golden light across the courtyard, they walked hand in hand between rows of olive trees. The air smelled of fresh earth and hope. Maya rested her head against his shoulder. You know, she said softly, that night on the bridge, I thought I was saving a stranger. I never imagined he would save me too. Adrian smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Maybe that is what real miracles look like. Two broken souls finding their way back to life together. The camera of the world might move on. The headlines might fade. But for Maya and Adrian, this was not an ending. It was a beginning born from courage, kindness, and truth. And as the last light of day touched the leaves above them, it felt as if the whole world exhaled with them finally, peacefully, home.